The sound of glass shattering against the restaurant wall made every head turn, including Jack Reynolds. He had been finishing a late dinner with his 6-year-old daughter Sophie when the commotion erupted 3 tables away. A tall man in an expensive suit stood over a woman with auburn hair, his face contorted with rage as he towered above her. "You think you're so much better than everyone else, don't you?" The man snarled, his voice carrying across the now silent restaurant. "Just because of your family name." Jack instinctively shifted in his seat to block Sophie's view. This wasn't something a child should witness. The woman remained seated, her posture rigid but dignified despite the humiliation. Her voice when she spoke was low but steady. "Daniel, you're making a scene. Please sit down or leave." Daniel laughed bitterly. "Oh, I'm leaving all right, and you can pay for this disaster of a dinner with your precious millions." He threw his napkin onto the table and stormed out, leaving a wake of uncomfortable silence. Jack turned back to Sophie, whose wide eyes reflected concern beyond her years. "Is that lady okay, Daddy?" His heart swelled with pride at his daughter's empathy. "I don't know, sweetheart. Let's finish our mac and cheese." "Okay." But Sophie's attention remained fixed on the woman who now sat alone staring at her untouched plate. The restaurant's chatter slowly resumed, but Jack noticed how people kept stealing glances at her, whispering behind menus. "She looks sad," Sophie observed, "like when Mommy left." The simple comparison hit Jack hard. 3 years had passed since Rachel had decided that family life wasn't for her, leaving him to raise Sophie alone. It hadn't been easy. Balancing his job as a high school English teacher with single parenthood stretched him thin financially and emotionally, but they managed. "Sometimes grown-ups have arguments, Soph. It's not our business." Sophie pushed her plate away. "But she's all alone now." Jack sighed, recognizing the stubborn set of his daughter's jaw. When she got that look, there was no deterring her. He glanced at his watch. It was already past her bedtime on a school night. "We need to go home, sweetie. It's getting late." Jack reached for his wallet to pay the bill, feeling the familiar knot of anxiety as he counted what remained of his budget for the week. His hand froze midway to his back pocket. The wallet wasn't there. He checked his other pockets, a flush of embarrassment creeping up his neck as he realized it must have fallen out in the car. "Everything okay, sir?" The waiter appeared beside their table with the check. "I seem to have misplaced my wallet." Jack's voice dropped to a whisper, mortification washing over him. "I think I left it in my car. Could you hold the check while I run out to check?" The waiter's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Of course, sir." As they stood to leave, Jack took care of helping Sophie into her jacket, keenly aware of the waiter watching them. They had to pass by the auburn-haired woman's table on their way out, and Sophie slowed her steps deliberately. The woman looked up as they approached, and Jack was struck by her eyes. Deep brown with flecks of amber, now rimmed with unshed tears, she was too proud to release in public. She offered a small smile to Sophie, who had stopped completely. "Your hair is pretty," Sophie announced with the disarming directness that only children can manage. "It looks like fall leaves." The woman's expression softened instantly. "Thank you, I like your unicorn shirt." Sophie beamed, tugging at the glittery fabric. "Daddy got it for my birthday. I'm 6 now." "6 is a very important age," the woman replied seriously. Jack placed a gentle hand on Sophie's shoulder. "Sorry to interrupt your evening. We're just heading out." The woman's gaze shifted to him, and for a moment Jack felt strangely exposed, as if she could see through the carefully constructed facade of a man who had everything under control. "It's no interruption," she assured him. "Your daughter brightened what has been a rather dismal evening." Something in her voice, a note of genuine weariness, made Jack hesitate. "Are you going to be okay?" "That was quite a scene earlier." She waved a dismissive hand. "That was just Daniel being Daniel. Unfortunately, this isn't the first time I've endured one of his tantrums." She hesitated before adding, "though it will certainly be the last." "Did he drive you here?" Jack found himself asking. A flicker of realization crossed her face. "He did, actually. I suppose I'll need to call a car service." Sophie tugged at Jack's hand. "Daddy, we can drive her home, like when you helped Miss Peterson when her car broke." Jack felt heat rise to his cheeks. "Sophie, I'm sure the lady can arrange her own transportation. We shouldn't impose." The woman studied them for a moment, then smiled. A real smile this time, not the polite one she'd been wearing. Actually, I'd appreciate the ride if it's not too much trouble. I'm Olivia. Olivia Morgan. Jack Reynolds, he replied, extending his hand. And this is my daughter, Sophie. Olivia's handshake was firm, her skin soft against his calloused palm. It's nice to meet you both. And I promise I don't live far just downtown. Downtown meant the high-rise apartment buildings that Jack could never afford on a teacher's salary. The waiter approached a question in his eyes about their attempt to leave without paying. I believe these two were dining with me this evening, Olivia said smoothly. Please add their bill to mine. Before Jack could protest, she had handed the waiter her credit card. That's really not necessary, he began, but Olivia cut him off with a gentle shake of her head. Consider it a thank you for the ride and for your daughter's compliment. It's the highlight of my evening. Jack's pride warred with practicality. The truth was he wouldn't find his wallet until morning at the earliest, and he couldn't leave Sophie waiting while he searched the car in the dark parking lot. Thank you, he conceded. I'll pay you back. We're heading that direction anyway. He lied smoothly as they walked to the parking lot, not wanting her to feel like a burden. Jack became acutely aware of his 10-year-old Honda Civic with its faded paint and the booster seat in the back. He hurriedly cleared away empty coffee cups and student papers from the passenger seat before opening the door for Olivia. Sorry about the mess, he apologized. I grade papers during Sophie's dance classes. You're a teacher, Olivia asked, settling into the seat without a hint of judgment. High school English at Roosevelt, he confirmed, helping Sophie into her booster seat. 10th and 11th grade. That must be rewarding. Burring, Olivia said, and something in her tone made him think she genuinely meant it. As they drove, Sophie regaled Olivia with stories about her first grade class and her best friend Emma. Jack noticed how attentively Olivia listened, asking questions that delighted Sophie with their thoughtfulness. Take a left at the next light, Olivia directed eventually. I'm in the Archer building. Jack couldn't hide his surprise. The Archer was one of the most exclusive addresses in the city, with a doorman and a view that stretched across the skyline. He had driven past it many times but had never had a reason to stop. Impressive building, he commented neutrally as he pulled up to the entrance. Olivia smiled. It's home. Thank you both for the ride. She turned to look at Sophie in the back seat. And thank you for cheering me up, Sophie. 6 really is a magical age. She reached for the door handle, then paused. I don't suppose... Would you like to have coffee sometime, Jack? As a thank you for rescuing me tonight. The invitation caught him off guard. Women like Olivia, poised, elegant, living in luxury buildings, didn't typically ask men like him for coffee. But there was something genuine in her expression that made him nod. I'd like that. They exchanged numbers, and Jack watched as she disappeared into the gleaming lobby, greeted by name by the uniformed doorman. I like her daddy, Sophie declared as they pulled away. She smells like cookies. Jack laughed. Does she now? Uh-huh. Can we see her again? We'll see, Soph. Now let's get you home and into bed. Later that night, after tucking Sophie in, Jack sat at his kitchen table grading essays. His phone lit up with a text message. Thank you again for tonight. Your daughter is wonderful. Coffee tomorrow. He stared at the message, surprised she had texted so soon. After a moment's hesitation, he replied, Tomorrow works. I finished teaching at 3:30. Her response came quickly. Perfect. Bluebird Cafe at 4 Sur Euro. It's near your school. Jack knew the place, a cozy upscale coffee shop where he rarely ventured because a single latte cost as much as a week of the break room coffee he usually drank. But for once, he decided he could splurge. See you then, he wrote back. The next day dragged interminably. His students noticed his distraction during their discussion of The Great Gatsby, and by the final period, even the normally apathetic seniors were exchanging knowing looks. Hot date, Mr. R, Zach Bennett asked with a smirk as the bell rang. Just coffee with a friend, Jack replied, feeling oddly like one of his teenage students. He managed to change his rumpled button-down for a fresh one he kept in his classroom for emergencies before heading to the cafe. The Bluebird was busy but not crowded, with soft jazz playing and the rich aroma of quality coffee filling the air. Olivia was already there, seated at a corner table by the window. Today her auburn hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wore jeans and a cream-colored sweater that made her look younger and more approachable than she had the night before. She waved when she saw him, and Jack felt an unexpected flutter in his chest. How was your day of molding young minds? She asked as he sat down. Less molding, more herding cats, he replied with a laugh. But we had some good discussions about symbolism in Fitzgerald that almost made up for the blank stares during grammar review. A server approached, and before Jack could order, Olivia said, 2 almond milk lattes and a slice of their chocolate torte to share, unless you'd prefer something else. Jack nodded, impressed by her confident order. That sounds perfect. I took the liberty of coming early to study the menu, she admitted with a slight blush. I've never actually been here before. Really, I assumed this was your regular spot, suggesting it and all. Olivia shook her head. I looked up cafes near Roosevelt High. The reviews for this place were stellar. She hesitated, then added, I don't actually get out much for casual things like coffee. My work keeps me rather isolated. What do you do? Jack asked, realizing he knew almost nothing about her beyond her name and address. Something flickered across her face, weariness perhaps, before she answered. I work in investment management, family business. It's terribly boring to most people. Try explaining the nuances of semicolon usage to 16-year-olds, Jack countered. I think I win the boring job contest. Her laugh was warm and genuine. Fair point, but I bet you make a difference every day. That's something special. Their conversation flowed easily after that. Olivia asked thoughtful questions about his teaching philosophy and listened intently to stories about Sophie. In turn, she shared anecdotes about growing up with 3 older brothers and her passion for art history, which she'd studied in college before joining her family's firm. I still visit museums whenever I can, she told him. There's something about standing in front of a painting that survives centuries that puts everything in perspective. Sophie would love that, Jack said, without thinking. She's going through an artistic phase. Our refrigerator is covered in masterpieces. I'd love to see them sometime, Olivia said softly, then looked surprised at her own words. 2 hours passed in what felt like minutes. When Jack finally checked his watch, he jumped up. I need to pick up Sophie from her after-school program. I'm so sorry. Don't apologize, Olivia insisted, gathering her things. Family comes first always. There was something in her tone, a sincerity that went beyond politeness, that made Jack pause. Would you like to join us for dinner? It's nothing fancy, just spaghetti night at our place, but Sophie would be thrilled. The invitation had slipped out impulsively, and he immediately worried it was too forward or too mundane for someone like Olivia, but her face lit up. I'd love that if you're sure I won't be intruding. Not at all, Jack assured her, trying to remember if he'd picked up his laundry from the living room floor that morning. They took separate cars, Olivia following in a modest silver Audi that surprised Jack with its understated practicality. Sophie was ecstatic to see Olivia again, immediately dragging her to see the classroom pet hamster she'd been allowed to bring home for the weekend. Jack's apartment was in an older building on the edge of a decent neighborhood. It was small but tidy, with mismatched furniture and walls decorated with Sophie's artwork. He felt a flash of self-consciousness as Olivia took it all in, but if she was judging their modest home, it didn't show on her face. This is so cozy, she said, running her hand along the worn leather of his second-hand couch. It feels like a real home. Sophie appointed herself tour guide, proudly showing Olivia her room with its unicorn bedspread and overflowing bookshelf. Daddy reads to me every night, she informed Olivia, even when he's super tired. That's because books are magic, Jack called from the kitchen, where he was putting water on to boil. Can I help with dinner? Olivia offered, joining him. You can chop the garlic if you want, he suggested, sliding a cutting board her way. Olivia picked up the knife with surprising confidence. My housekeeper taught me some basics. She got tired of me eating takeout every night. You have a housekeeper? Sophie asked, climbing onto a stool at the counter. Olivia froze momentarily. I do. Her name is Rosa, and she's been with my family since I was younger than you. Cool, is she nice? Does she make cookies? Daddy makes the best chocolate chip cookies. Olivia relaxed at Sophie's simple acceptance. She does make amazing churros. Maybe you can try them sometime. The evening unfolded with a natural ease that surprised Jack. Olivia fit seamlessly into their routine, helping Sophie set the table and listening to her chatter about school. During dinner, she shared a story about her brothers teaching her to play baseball that had Sophie giggling uncontrollably. After they'd eaten, Olivia insisted on helping with dishes while Jack supervised Sophie's bath time. When he returned to the kitchen, he found Olivia staring at the calendar on his refrigerator where he'd carefully noted parent-teacher conferences, bill due dates, and Sophie's activities. "You juggle a lot," she observed quietly. Jack shrugged. "No more than any single parent." "But you do it with such grace," Olivia said, turning to face him. "Sophie is extraordinary, and that's because of you." Something in her expression, admiration tinged with something deeper, made his heart race. They stood there in his small kitchen, the distance between them charged with possibility. The moment was broken by Sophie calling from the bathroom. "Daddy, I'm ready for my story." Olivia smiled. "Go read some magic." "You're welcome to join us," Jack offered. And so he found himself sitting on Sophie's bed with Olivia beside him, reading Charlotte's Web, while Sophie nestled between them. By the time Wilbur was meeting Charlotte for the first time, Sophie had fallen asleep. "She had a big day," Jack whispered, carefully extracting himself. Olivia followed him out of the room, and he closed the door halfway, leaving it open just enough for the hallway light to filter in. In the living room, an awkward silence fell between them. It had been so long since Jack had navigated these waters. The end of an evening with a woman he was attracted to, the question of what came next hanging in the air. "I should probably go," Olivia said finally. "I have an early meeting tomorrow." Jack nodded, trying to hide his disappointment. "Thank you for joining our chaotic dinner." "It was the best evening I've had in longer than I can remember," she admitted. "Would you like to do something this weekend? All three of us. There's an interactive art exhibit at the Children's Museum that Sophie might enjoy." "She'd love that," Jack said, relief washing over him. "So would I." At the door, Olivia hesitated, then leaned forward and kissed his cheek. "Good night, Jack." The weekend date at the museum turned into dinner afterward, which evolved into a Sunday afternoon at the park. Before Jack knew it, Olivia had become a regular fixture in their lives. She brought thoughtful gifts for Sophie, art supplies, books, a telescope that Jack knew cost more than he'd spend on Christmas, but always checked with him first and never made him feel like her generosity was charity. What surprised Jack most was how down-to-earth Olivia was. She arrived for their outings in jeans and sweaters, drove her modest Audi rather than calling a car service, and seemed genuinely delighted by simple pleasures like ice cream from a street vendor or feeding ducks at the park. Only occasionally did glimpses of her other life show through. The way maitre d's sometimes recognized her at restaurants, how she absent-mindedly mentioned meeting the mayor at a function, or the time she had to reschedule their plans because her helicopter couldn't take off due to weather. "Helicopter," Jack had repeated, sure he'd misheard. "For a client meeting upstate," Olivia had explained quickly. "One of the perks, or hazards, of the job." He knew she came from money. Her apartment in the Archer had made that clear from the start, but the extent of her wealth remained vague. Whenever the topic veered toward her work or background, she deftly redirected the conversation. One evening, about 2 months after they'd met, Jack was grading papers while Sophie played with the elaborate dollhouse Olivia had brought over the previous weekend. His phone rang with a number he didn't recognize. "Mr. Reynolds, this is Victoria Lambert, chief editor at Hawthorne Publishing. I understand you've been working on a young adult novel." Jack nearly dropped the phone. He had indeed spent the last 5 years writing a fantasy novel for teens, sending out queries to agents and publishers with no success. "Yes, that's right. How did you—" "We received your manuscript last week and found it quite compelling. We'd like to discuss publication options if you're interested." Stunned, Jack agreed to a meeting the following day. After hanging up, he sat in disbelief. He hadn't submitted to Hawthorne, one of the biggest publishers in the country, because they didn't accept unsolicited manuscripts. When Olivia arrived for dinner that night, bringing takeout from his favorite Thai restaurant, he recounted the strange call. "That's amazing," she exclaimed, but something in her expression made him suspicious. "Olivia," he said slowly, "did you have something to do with this?" She busied herself with him unpacking the food. "I may have mentioned your book to a friend who knows someone at Hawthorne." "How did you even get a copy of my manuscript?" he asked, torn between gratitude and unease. Olivia looked embarrassed. "Remember when I borrowed your laptop to check my email while you were bathing Sophie? I saw the file on your desktop." She reached for his hand. "I only read a few pages, but it was brilliant, Jack. You deserve this chance." A mixture of emotions churned inside him. Appreciation for her belief in him, discomfort at the invasion of privacy, and concern about owing his potential success to connections rather than merit. You went through my personal files. The words came out sharper than he intended. And then sent my work to someone without asking me. Olivia's face fell. I thought you'd be happy. I am. I mean, it's an incredible opportunity, but Jack ran a hand through his hair, struggling to articulate the complex feelings swirling inside him. This is my work, Olivia, my private creative world that I've been building for years. You can't just take it and pass it around without my permission. I was trying to help. Her voice had grown small. I know how talented you are, and I wanted others to see it too. But that wasn't your decision to make. Jack stood up, pacing the small kitchen. Do you have any idea how this makes me feel? Like I couldn't succeed on my own merits? Like I needed someone with connections to make it happen? Sophie appeared in the doorway, her eyes wide with concern. Why are you yelling, Daddy? Jack immediately softened his tone. I'm not yelling, sweetheart. Olivia and I are just having a grown-up discussion. It sounds like fighting. Sophie's lower lip trembled. Olivia knelt down to Sophie's level. Sometimes adults disagree, but it doesn't mean we're angry at each other. We're just talking about something important. Sophie looked unconvinced. Are you going to leave like Mommy did? The innocent question hit them both like a physical blow. Jack moved to his daughter's side, pulling her into a hug. No one's leaving, Soph, I promise. Olivia's eyes filled with tears. I should go, she whispered, gathering her purse. I didn't mean to upset anyone. Olivia, wait, Jack began, but she was already heading for the door. Call me when you've had time to think, she said, her voice breaking slightly. I really was just trying to help. After she left, Jack sat on the couch with Sophie reading her extra stories until she fell asleep. He spent the restless night replaying their argument, his anger gradually giving way to a more nuanced understanding. Yes, Olivia had overstepped, but her intentions had been good. And wasn't this opportunity what he'd been working toward for years? The meeting with Hawthorne the next day went better than Jack could have dreamed. They offered an advance that would ease his financial strain considerably and talked enthusiastically about a potential series. When he called Olivia afterward, her voice was cautious. How did it go? They loved it, he admitted. They're offering a 3-book deal. Jack, that's wonderful. I'm still upset about how this happened, he interrupted. But I understand you were trying to do something kind. I just need you to respect my boundaries in the future. I will, she promised. I should have asked first. I'm not used to considering others in my decisions. There was something revealing in that statement, a glimpse into a life where Olivia was accustomed to acting unilaterally. Jack found himself softening further. I'd like to see you, he said, to talk in person. They agreed to meet at a small park near Sophie's school the following afternoon. Jack arrived early, watching as Olivia approached in a simple blouse and jeans, her hair loose around her shoulders. Despite their argument, his heart still quickened at the sight of her. I owe you an apology, she began before he could speak. What I did was presumptuous and invasive. I'm used to making things happen, to fixing problems, but I shouldn't have treated your work, something so personal, as just another situation to manage. Jack nodded, appreciating her directness. I accept your apology, and I should thank you for believing in my writing enough to share it. Not many people have. They walked in silence for a moment, the tension between them gradually easing. There's something else I need to tell you, Olivia said, finally stopping to face him. Something I should have shared from the beginning. Jack braced himself, unsure what revelation was coming. My family doesn't just work in investments, she began, her voice steady despite the nervousness in her eyes. Morgan isn't just any investment firm. It's Morgan Global Investments. The name clicked in Jack's mind. One of the largest financial institutions in the country, frequently mentioned in business news. And I'm not just an employee, Olivia continued. I'm the CEO. After my father stepped down last year, I took over. Jack's mind struggled to process this information. CEO, but you're so young. 32. The youngest CEO in our company's history, and one of the few women leading a major financial institution. Pride and burden mingled in her voice. The company manages over $40 billion in assets. $40 billion. The number hit Jack like a physical force, making him dizzy with its implications. Suddenly, so many things made sense. The apartment, the helicopter, the casual mentions of influential connections. Why didn't you tell me? He asked, finding his voice at last. Olivia's eyes met his vulnerability clear in their amber depths. Because for once in my life, someone was seeing me, just me, not my family name or my net worth. That night at the restaurant when Daniel made that scene, he had just found out exactly how much I was worth and was angry that I had deceived him by not flaunting it. She took a deep breath. With you and Sophie for the first time, I felt normal valued for who I am, not what I own. You rescued me that night without knowing or caring about my bank account. A notification sound came from Olivia's phone, breaking the moment. She glanced at it and her face changed color, draining from her cheeks. What is it? Jack asked. I need to take this call, she said, already dialing. It's an emergency at the office. Jack stepped back to give her privacy, watching as she transformed before his eyes. Her posture straightened, her voice took on a commanding tone he'd never heard before, and she fired off a series of decisive instructions to whoever was on the other end of the line. This wasn't the Olivia who read bedtime stories to Sophie or laughed at ducks in the park. This was Olivia Morgan, CEO, a woman who controlled billions of dollars and commanded respect with every word. As the call continued, Jack noticed two of his colleagues from Roosevelt High walking toward them. Before he could decide whether to acknowledge them or move away, Olivia's voice carried clearly across the park. Tell the board I'll be there in 30 minutes. No, the Beijing deal cannot close without my approval. Make that absolutely clear. The teachers slowed their pace, openly staring now. One leaned to whisper to the other, and Jack could practically see the gossip forming. By tomorrow, the entire school would be buzzing with speculation about Mr. Reynolds and his mysterious, powerful companion. Olivia ended the call and turned back to him, the mask of corporate authority slipping away to reveal the woman he'd come to care for. I'm so sorry, Jack. There's a situation I need to handle immediately. It's okay, he said automatically, though his mind was still reeling from everything he'd learned. We'll talk more later, she asked, uncertainty creeping into her voice. Jack nodded, watching as she hurried toward her car, already making another call. He stood alone in the park, trying to reconcile the Olivia he knew with Olivia Morgan, billionaire CEO. The woman who chopped garlic in his kitchen, and the woman who closed deals in Beijing. Were they really the same person? And more importantly, where did he, a high school English teacher with a mortgage he could barely afford, fit into her world? As he walked back to his car, his phone buzzed with a text from one of the teachers who had passed by. Was that Olivia Morgan? The Olivia Morgan. OMG. Jack, spill everything tomorrow. Reality crashed down around him. His private life was about to become very public, and he wasn't sure either of them was ready for what that would mean. That evening, after putting Sophie to bed, Jack searched Olivia's name online. Article after article appeared. Profiles in business magazines, photos at charity galas, analysis of her leadership at Morgan Global. In every image, she looked polished and remote, nothing like the woman who had curled up on his couch reading Charlotte's Web. One headline in particular caught his eye: America's Most Eligible Billionaire, The Private Life of Olivia Morgan. The article speculated about her romantic prospects, suggesting connections to various wealthy bachelors and lamenting her apparent determination to remain single. There was no mention of a high school teacher or his 6-year-old daughter. Jack closed his laptop, his thoughts in turmoil. He was falling for a woman who inhabited a world so different from his own that he could barely comprehend it. A woman who had kept the truth from him, even as she integrated herself into the most important parts of his life. His home, his work, his daughter. His phone rang. Olivia's name flashed on the screen. I'm sorry about today, she said when he answered, both for the interruption and for not telling you sooner about who I am. I understand why you didn't, Jack replied, surprising himself with the realization that he meant it. Everyone wants something from you. Except you, she said softly. You just wanted me. The simplicity of the statement hung between them, honest and vulnerable. I still do, he admitted, but I don't know how this works, Olivia. Our worlds are so different. They don't have to be separate worlds, she argued. They can overlap, intersect. We can create our own world together. Jack thought of Sophie, of how quickly she had grown attached to Olivia, and of how devastated she would be if Olivia disappeared from their lives as suddenly as she had appeared. It's not just about us, he said. Sophie adores you. If this doesn't work... I know, Olivia's voice was solemn. I adore her too, which is why I want to try to make this work. really work. No more secrets. No more pretending to be someone I'm not. No more sending my manuscripts to publishers without asking. Jack couldn't help adding a hint of humor returning. Olivia laughed, the sound warming him even through the phone. No more unauthorized manuscript submissions, I promise. They talked late into the night, Olivia sharing more about her life as CEO, the pressures and privileges that came with her position. Jack told her about his dreams for his writing, his fears for Sophie's future, the everyday struggles and joys of his more ordinary existence. By the time they said goodnight, something had shifted between them, a deeper understanding, a more honest foundation. Jack still wasn't sure how their story would unfold, but for the first time, he allowed himself to imagine a future where their worlds truly did overlap, creating something neither of them could have built alone. The next morning, as Jack arrived at Roosevelt High, he immediately sensed the change. Colleagues glanced his way with newfound curiosity. Conversations hushed as he passed in the hallway. By lunchtime, the principal had summoned him to her office. Jack, she began, her tone carefully neutral. There's been some talk around the school today. About Olivia Morgan, he guessed. The principal nodded. Several staff members believe they saw you with her yesterday. Naturally, there's interest given her prominence. Jack straightened in his chair. I'm seeing Olivia, yes. I prefer to keep my personal life private, but I understand the curiosity. It's more than curiosity, Jack. Ms. Morgan is a very public figure. If your relationship becomes known, it could bring attention to the school, attention we're not necessarily prepared for. The implication was clear. His private choices could have professional consequences. The thought ignited a spark of defiance in Jack's chest. I wasn't aware that teachers' dating lives were subject to administrative approval, he said evenly. The principal backpedaled quickly. Of course they're not. I'm simply suggesting discretion for everyone's sake. As he left her office, Jack's phone buzzed with a text from Olivia. Are we still on for dinner tonight? I'd like to cook for you and Sophie at my place. Jack hesitated. Dinner at Olivia's meant entering her world fully for the first time. Not just the glimpses he'd had from the outside, but immersion in the life she normally lived. Was he ready for that? Was Sophie? We'd love to, he texted back, making the decision to move forward, despite his lingering doubts. That evening, as they approached the Archer building, Sophie bounced with excitement in the back seat. Does Olivia live in a castle? Jack smiled at her through the rearview mirror. Not exactly sweetheart, but I bet her place is pretty nice. Nicer than our apartment. Probably a bit bigger. Jack understated, remembering that the Archers' smallest units were still twice the size of their home. The uniformed doorman greeted them with practiced deference. Good evening, sir. Ms. Morgan is expecting you. Penthouse floor. Of course it was the penthouse. Jack tried to keep his expression neutral as he and Sophie stepped into the private elevator that required a keycard for access. This is like a spaceship, Daddy. Sophie's eyes were wide with wonder as the elevator ascended silently. When the doors opened, they stepped directly into a foyer that was larger than Jack's living room. Beyond it stretched an expanse of gleaming hardwood floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, revealing a panoramic view of the city skyline, now bathed in the golden light of sunset. Olivia appeared from what Jack presumed was the kitchen, wearing jeans and a simple blouse, her hair tied back in a loose knot. Despite the casual attire, she looked somehow different here, more at home in this space of understated luxury than she ever had in his modest apartment. You came, she said, relief evident in her voice. She knelt down to Sophie's level. What do you think of my home, Sophie? The little girl was momentarily speechless, taking in the vastness of the penthouse, the view, the minimalist, yet clearly expensive furnishings. Then her attention caught on something across the room, a large glass-enclosed bookcase filled with children's books. You have so many books, Sophie exclaimed, already moving toward the treasure trove. Olivia smiled. I may have done a little shopping when I found out you were coming. I wasn't sure which ones you already had. Jack raised an eyebrow. A little shopping. There had to be over 100 books in the case, many of them hardcover editions he recognized as collector's items or limited releases that cost more than his weekly grocery budget. Olivia had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. I got carried away. Books are magic, right? The evening progressed with Sophie exploring the penthouse while Olivia prepared dinner. a homemade pasta dish she claimed Rosa had taught her to make. Jack offered to help, but found himself more of a hindrance in the professional-grade kitchen with its unfamiliar equipment. "How many people usually eat here?" he asked, noting the formal dining room with its table that could seat 12. "Just me most nights," Olivia admitted. "Sometimes I have colleagues over for business dinners, but those are usually catered." The image of Olivia eating alone at that massive table struck Jack as profoundly sad. No wonder she had so eagerly inserted herself into their messy, cramped family dinners. After they ate, Olivia gave them a proper tour of the penthouse. Beyond the main living area were 4 bedrooms, each with its own bathroom, a home office larger than Jack's classroom, a media room, and a small gym. One room stood empty except for a baby grand piano. "I always meant to learn," Olivia explained when Jack asked about it. "It was my mother's. She was an accomplished pianist." Was, Jack caught the past tense. "She died when I was 12. Cancer." Olivia's voice was matter-of-fact, but Jack sensed the well of grief beneath the simple statement. "I'm sorry," he said, touching her arm gently. Sophie, who had been exploring the room's acoustics by singing to hear her echo, came to stand beside them. "My mommy didn't die," she said solemnly. "She just didn't want to be a mommy anymore." Jack winced at his daughter's blunt assessment, but Olivia knelt down to Sophie's level. "Sometimes adults make choices that hurt the people they love, even when they don't mean to. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you." Sophie considered this. "Do you want to be a mommy?" The directness of the question hung in the air between them. Jack started to intervene, but Olivia answered first. "I think being a mommy to the right child would be the greatest adventure in the world." Something shifted in Jack's chest at her word, a recognition of the future they might build together, a future that had seemed impossible just days earlier when he didn't know who she truly was, but now felt tantalizingly within reach. Later, after Sophie had fallen asleep in one of the guest bedrooms, surrounded by new books, Jack and Olivia sat on the balcony overlooking the city. "You've created a beautiful life," Jack said, gesturing to the penthouse, the view all the trappings of her success. "A beautiful cage," Olivia corrected softly. "Until you and Sophie, I didn't realize how lonely I was in it." Jack thought about the contrast between their lives. Her wealth and his modest means, her corporate power and his classroom authority, her solitude and his busy parent-teacher conferences. Separately, neither life was perfect. Together, perhaps they could be. "I'm still not entirely sure how I fit into your world," he admitted, "or how you fit into mine." Olivia reached for his hand. "We create a new world, one that takes the best of both." As they sat in companionable silence watching the city lights twinkle below, Jack's phone buzzed. A text from a number he didn't recognize. "Mr. Reynolds, this is Jason Whitman from the Boston Globe. I understand you're dating Olivia Morgan. We'd like to schedule an interview about your relationship." Jack stared at the message in disbelief, then showed it to Olivia. "How did they get my number? How do they even know about us?" Olivia's expression hardened in a way he hadn't seen before. "Welcome to my world. Privacy is a luxury even money can't always buy." "What do we do? Ignore it," as she advised. Responding only confirms there's a story. Jack tried to imagine reporters calling his school, approaching him in the grocery store, possibly even trying to talk to Sophie. The thought made him physically ill. "I need to protect Sophie from this," he said firmly. "She's already been through enough with Rachel leaving." "We'll protect her together," Olivia promised. "My PR team can help manage the situation." The words PR team drove home yet again the gulf between their worlds. Jack had a teachers' union representative. Olivia had an entire department dedicated to managing her public image. As they drove home that night, Sophie asleep in the back seat, clutching one of her new books, Jack struggled with conflicting emotions. He was falling in love with Olivia, the real Olivia, billionaire CEO and all, but he was also increasingly aware of the complications her wealth and status would bring to their lives. The next morning, Jack found 3 more messages from different reporters on his phone. When he arrived at school, a photographer was waiting in the parking lot. "Mr. Reynolds, can you comment on your relationship with Olivia Morgan?" The man called camera already raised. Jack hurried into the building, heart pounding. In the teacher's lounge, conversations stopped when he entered. His colleague, Martin, approached, concern evident on his face. There's a reporter trying to get into the building, he warned. Security stopped him, but he's claiming he just wants to talk to you about your billionaire girlfriend. The principal called Jack to her office before first period. This is exactly what I was concerned about, she said, her expression grim. We can't have media disrupting our school day. I understand, Jack said. I'm doing everything I can to keep my private life private. Perhaps you should consider whether this relationship is worth the disruption, she suggested, not unkindly, for your career and for your daughter. The comment stung all the more because it echoed Jack's own doubts. He taught his students about the great romances in literature, Romeo and Juliet, Elizabeth and Darcy, but those were fiction. In real life, love didn't always conquer all, especially when the obstacles were as substantial as the ones he and Olivia faced. By lunchtime, Jack had received a dozen more messages from reporters. He turned his phone off and tried to focus on teaching, but found his thoughts constantly returning to Olivia. Was this what her life was always like? Constant scrutiny, invasion of privacy, judgment from strangers? When he picked Sophie up from her after-school program, the coordinator pulled him aside. There was a woman here earlier asking questions about Sophie, she said in a low voice. She claimed to be from a parenting magazine doing a story on after-school activities, but she seemed particularly interested in your daughter. Jack felt a chill run through him. Did she speak to Sophie? No, of course not. We never allow strangers access to the children, but I thought you should know. Jack thanked her, then hurried Sophie to the car, checking over his shoulder for anyone who might be following them. This was getting out of hand. At home, he called Olivia, who answered immediately. I was just about to call you, she said. I've seen the online articles. I'm so sorry, Jack. Articles? What articles? Nothing substantial yet, just gossip sites speculating about us. But my PR team warned me it's likely to escalate. Jack sank onto the couch, suddenly exhausted. Someone tried to talk to Sophie at her school today. Olivia's sharp intake of breath was audible. That crosses a line. I'll have security arranged for both of you immediately. Security, Olivia. We can't live like that. Sophie can't live like that. There was a long pause. What are you saying, Jack? He closed his eyes, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. I don't know. I just know I need to protect my daughter. And you think I'm a threat to her, hurt-colored Olivia's voice. Not you, Jack clarified. This situation, the attention, she's just a little girl who already lost her mother. I can't let her world be turned upside down again. Neither spoke for a moment. The unspoken question hanging between them was their relationship worth the cost. What if we step back, Olivia suggested finally, just for a while until the interest dies down. We could be more discreet, meet less frequently. The thought of seeing less of Olivia created an ache in Jack's chest, but he couldn't deny the logic of her suggestion. Maybe that would help. I understand if you need to protect Sophie, Olivia said, her voice small. She has to come first. After they hung up, Jack sat in his quiet apartment, surrounded by the evidence of Olivia's presence in their lives. Books she had brought, artwork she had admired, the telescope still in its box. The thought of removing her from their daily existence felt like a physical loss, but the alternative seemed increasingly untenable. Sophie emerged from her room clutching one of the books from Olivia's collection. When is Olivia coming over again? Jack patted the couch beside him. We might not see Olivia for a little while, Soph. Her face fell. Because of the people with cameras. Sometimes Jack forgot how perceptive children could be. Partly, Olivia is a very important person in her job, and sometimes that means people are very interested in her life. But she likes us better than her, Sophie stated with certainty. She told me. Out of the mouths of babes. Jack pulled his daughter close, wondering if they were making a mistake by pulling away just when they had started to build something real. That night, unable to sleep, Jack opened his laptop and searched for Olivia's name again. The newest articles had indeed moved beyond speculation to outright invention. Claims that they had been secretly dating for years, suggestions that their relationship was a publicity stunt, even implications that Jack was using Olivia for financial gain. One headline in particular caught his eye. Teacher targets billionaire gold digging or true love. The article included a photo of him entering the school looking harried and a glamorous shot of Olivia at a charity event. The contrast couldn't have been more stark or more deliberate. Jack closed the laptop, his decision made. Tomorrow he would talk to Olivia about taking more than a step back. For Sophie's sake, for his own professional reputation, perhaps they needed to end things entirely before they got even more complicated. His phone lit up with a text. Olivia again. Can't sleep. Thinking about you both. Whatever happens, know that these past months have been the happiest of my life. Jack stared at the message, his resolve wavering. Could he really walk away from the woman who had brought such joy to their lives? The woman he was falling in love with. Before he could respond, another text came through, this one from a number he hadn't seen in 3 years. Rachel. Saw you're dating the Morgan heiress. Guess Sophie's living the high life now. Maybe it's time I came back for a visit. The threat was barely veiled. Jack's blood ran cold as he considered the implications. Rachel had abandoned them without a backward glance, but now that money was in the picture, she was suddenly interested again. The situation had just become exponentially more complicated. Jack stared at Rachel's message, an unsettling mixture of anger and fear coursing through him. The timing couldn't be more suspicious. 3 years of complete absence, not even a birthday card for Sophie, and now she suddenly wanted to visit after seeing news about Olivia. He took a screenshot of the text and forwarded it to Olivia before he could second-guess himself. His phone rang almost immediately. This is extortion? Olivia's voice was tight with controlled rage. She abandoned Sophie and now wants to leverage your relationship with me for money. It gets worse. Jack pressed his forehead against the cool kitchen counter. The principal suggested today that my relationship with you might not be worth the disruption to my career. The silence on the other end spoke volumes, which is when Olivia finally responded, her voice had lost its executive sharpness, replaced by a vulnerable uncertainty Jack had rarely heard from her. Do you agree with her? Jack closed his eyes, the weight of everything pressing down on him. 3 days ago, my biggest worry was whether Sophie's science project would dry in time for school. Now I'm fielding calls from reporters worrying about strange women trying to talk to my daughter and dealing with my ex suddenly reappearing. This isn't the life I signed up for. It's not the life I wanted for you either, Olivia whispered. Maybe we should talk in person. They arranged to meet at her penthouse the following evening. Jack would bring Sophie to stay with his neighbor, Mrs. Chen, who often watched her when he had evening obligations at school. Sleep evaded him that night, his mind cycling through worst-case scenarios. By morning, there were 2 more texts from Rachel, each more pointed than the last. Wonder what a judge would think about Sophie living in a media circus. And I bet those Morgan lawyers are expensive. Hope your new girlfriend is willing to pay. When Jack arrived at school, a small cluster of reporters had gathered at the entrance. The principal met him at a side door, her expression grim. This can't continue, Jack. It's affecting the entire school. A knot of dread tightened in his stomach. I understand. I'm meeting with Olivia tonight to figure this out. Good. The principal hesitated, then added, the school board called this morning. They're concerned about the attention. The implied threat hung in the air between them. Jack had been hoping for the department chair position that would open next semester, a promotion that would significantly ease his financial situation. Now that opportunity seemed to be slipping away, another casualty of his complicated relationship. His students were unusually subdued that day, except for the inevitable whispers that fell silent when he approached. During his planning period, Jack checked his email to find a message from his literary agent. Hawthorne Publishing was reconsidering the terms of his contract due to unforeseen circumstances. The message included a link to an article suggesting his book deal was the result of his relationship with Olivia rather than merit. By the time Jack picked up Sophie from school, his resolve had hardened. This situation was becoming untenable, affecting every aspect of his life. When he dropped her at Mrs. Chen's apartment, Sophie clung to him with unusual tenacity. Are you going to see Olivia? Her small face was pinched with worry. Is she still our friend? Jack knelt to her level, smoothing her hair back from her forehead. Olivia will always be your friend, Soph. Grown-up relationships are just complicated sometimes. Like with Mommy. The innocent comparison landed like a blow. No, sweetheart, not like that at all. As Jack drove to Olivia's building, a sleek black car pulled alongside him at a red light. The tinted window lowered to reveal a man in his 40s with Olivia's amber eyes, Andrew Morgan, whom Jack recognized from photos online. Mr. Reynolds, Andrew's voice carried the practiced neutrality of someone accustomed to boardroom negotiations. I was hoping we might have a conversation before you see my sister. Jack's grip tightened on the steering wheel. I don't think that's a good idea. I'm not your enemy, Andrew insisted, but there are things you should know, for Sophie's sake. The mention of his daughter's name sent a chill through Jack. How do you know about Sophie? Andrew's expression remained impassive. That's precisely what we need to discuss. Please, just a quick coffee. The Artisan Cafe is just around the corner. Against his better judgment, Jack followed Andrew's car to the upscale cafe. They were seated in a private corner, away from curious eyes. Andrew ordered an espresso without consulting the menu, a man accustomed to his preferences being known and accommodated. I'll be direct, Andrew began once they were alone. My sister is making a mistake. Her judgment is compromised where you're concerned. Jack felt his defenses rise. If you're suggesting my interest in Olivia has anything to do with her money. Actually, I believe you genuinely care for her, Andrews interrupted, which makes this more difficult. Olivia has responsibilities that extend far beyond herself. Morgan Global manages the retirement accounts of thousands of people, employs over 3,000 staff, and influences markets across the world. I'm aware of what she does. Are you? Andrew leaned forward. Because since meeting you, she's missed 2 critical board meetings, delegated key decisions that should have been hers, and is now considering restructuring the entire Asia-Pacific division from remote offices so she can spend more time in this city. With you. The revelation struck Jack speechless. Olivia hadn't mentioned any of this. My sister deserves happiness. Andrew continued in a softer tone. But her position requires sacrifices. The company isn't just a group, it's a legacy, a responsibility to thousands of people who depend on Morgan Global for their livelihoods. Jack struggled to process this new information. Why are you telling me this? Because you seem like a decent man who cares about his daughter. Andrew's gaze was penetrating. And I thought you should know that your ex-wife has hired a lawyer, a good one. She's building a case for custody based on the disruption to Sophie's life caused by your relationship with Olivia. The cafe seemed to tilt around Jack. How could you possibly know that? Andrew had the grace to look slightly uncomfortable. I had you investigated. Standard procedure for anyone who gets close to Olivia. We found your ex-wife's lawyer's name on recently filed preliminary paperwork. You had no right. We're talking about my sister, Andrew cut him off, and billions of dollars in assets. There's no such thing as privacy at this level, Jack. The sooner you understand that, the better. Jack pushed back his chair, standing abruptly. I need to go. One more thing. Andrew remained seated calm in the face of Jack's anger. Olivia will deny all of this. She'll say she can balance everything that she can protect you and Sophie from the fallout. She believes it because she wants to believe it. But the reality is different. Jack left without responding, his mind reeling. By the time he reached Olivia's building, he was shaking with a toxic blend of anger and fear. The doorman recognized him instantly, ushering him to the private elevator without comment. Olivia was waiting in the foyer, casually elegant, in a tailored pants and a silk blouse. The sight of her still made his heart skip even through his turmoil. She moved to embrace him, but stopped short when she saw his expression. What happened? Concern flooded her features. Is Sophie okay? I just had a fascinating chat with your brother. Jack's voice was tight with controlled emotion. He seems to think Rachel is building a custody case against me. Olivia's expression shifted from concern to fury in an instant. Andrew approached you without my knowledge. Is it true, Jack pressed, about Rachel? Olivia hesitated, then nodded. My security team flagged some unusual activity. She's consulted with Hargrove and Bennett, a family law firm known for high-profile custody battles. But I was going to tell you tonight, I swear. Along with the fact that you're restructuring your entire company to spend more time with me. The color drained from Olivia's face. He had no right to share that. It's a preliminary proposal, nothing definite. That's not the point. Jack ran a hand through his hair in frustration. The point is that our relationship is affecting every aspect of both our lives. Your work, my teaching career, Sophie's stability. And now Rachel is threatening to take my daughter. Olivia guided him to the living room where a bottle of wine was already open. We'll fight it. My legal team is the best in the country. Rachel doesn't have a case she abandoned Sophie willingly. But now there are reporters outside my school, Jack countered. Strange women trying to talk to Sophie. My publisher is reconsidering my contract because they think I only got it through your connections. The school board is concerned about the attention. This is my life, Olivia. My daughter's life. I can fix this, Olivia insisted, the CEO and her rising to the surface. We'll hire security for you both. I'll have my PR team manage the media. The publisher can be handled. Listen to yourself, Jack interrupted. Security PR teams. This isn't normal, Olivia. This isn't the life I want for Sophie. Olivia fell silent, her fingers twisting the stem of her untouched wine glass. When she spoke again, her voice had lost its commanding tone. What are you saying, Jack? I'm saying maybe your brother is right, Jack admitted, the words painful to voice. Maybe we're fooling ourselves thinking this can work. Tears welled in Olivia's eyes, but she blinked them back with practiced control. I thought you were different. I thought you saw me, not my bank account or my last name. I do see you, Jack insisted, reaching for her hand across the coffee table. That's why this is so hard. Because I'm falling in love with you, the real you who reads the Sophie and makes pasta from scratch and gets excited about art museums. But I can't separate that person from Olivia Morgan, CEO, whose life comes with paparazzi and security concerns and brothers who investigate the people she dates. A single tear escaped, tracking down Olivia's cheek. So that's it. We just give up. I don't know, Jack admitted, but I know I can't risk losing Sophie. She's already lost one parent. I won't let her lose another. Olivia nodded slowly, her composure returning like armor, sliding into place. Then perhaps we should take a step back. Give things time to settle down. I think that might be best, Jack agreed, though the words felt like gravel in his throat. They sat in painful silence, the city lights twinkling beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. Finally, Olivia stood, moving to the bar cart to pour herself something stronger than wine. Will you tell Sophie? I'll have to, Jack replied. She'll notice when you're not around. Tell her, Olivia's voice caught. Tell her I miss her already. Jack left shortly after the goodbye, awkward and strained. The doorman called a taxi, refusing Jack's attempt to decline the service. As the car pulled away from the gleaming tower, Jack watched Olivia's building recede in the rear window, wondering if he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life. The next morning, Sophie asked about Olivia over breakfast, her small face serious. Did you and Olivia have a fight? Jack set down his coffee mug, choosing his words carefully. Not exactly, but we decided we need to take a break from seeing each other for a while. Sophie's lower lip trembled. Because of the people with cameras, or because of me? Absolutely not because of you, Jack assured her quickly. You're the most important person in my life, Soph. Nothing will ever change that. But Olivia made you happy, Sophie persisted with the devastating insight of children. You smile more when she's here. Jack had no answer for that. Instead, he hugged his daughter close, breathing in the strawberry scent of her shampoo, wondering how to protect her from the complications his choices had created. The reprieve was brief. That afternoon, as Jack was leaving school, he found Rachel waiting by his car. 3 years had changed her, little, still slender, still beautiful, with the same restless energy that had once attracted him. She wore expensive clothes now, a far cry from the struggling graduate student he'd married. Hello, Jack. Her smile hadn't changed either, confident and slightly predatory. Surprised to see me, Jack glanced around, checking for photographers or curious onlookers. What are you doing here, Rachel? Visiting my daughter, of course. She leaned against his car, casual, as if she hadn't disappeared from their lives without warning. Though I hear she might be getting a billionaire stepmother soon. Quite the upgrade from our little apartment. Sophie isn't a bargaining chip. Jack kept his voice low, mindful of students still trickling out of the building. And if you think you can use my relationship with Olivia to extort money. Such an ugly word, Rachel interrupted, her smile never faltering. I prefer to think of it as reconnecting with my family at an opportune time. You gave up all rights to call us family when you walked out. Jack felt the familiar anger rising, 3 years of single parenthood, of explaining to Sophie why her mother never called, of working 2 summer jobs to make ends meet. You don't get to waltz back now that there's money in the picture. Rachel's smile hardened. I have excellent lawyers who disagree. They think a judge might be very interested in how Sophie's life has been disrupted by reporters and paparazzi. How her father's new girlfriend brings unwanted attention and potential security risks. We've stopped seeing each other. Jack admitted the words like acid on his tongue. That gave Rachel pause. Really, that was fast. It was because of Sophie, Jack met her gaze directly. Because I'll do anything to protect our daughter, including ending a relationship that brought media attention we didn't want. Something flickered across Rachel's face. Disappointment perhaps at seeing her leverage evaporate. How noble. But it doesn't change the fact that I want to be part of Sophie's life again. After 3 years of complete silence, Jack couldn't keep the bitterness from his voice. She's not a toy you can set aside and pick up again when it suits you. People change, Jack. For the first time, Rachel's composure cracked slightly. I've been in therapy. I've worked through some things. I miss her. Jack studied his ex-wife, trying to discern sincerity from manipulation. If you genuinely want to reconnect with Sophie, we can discuss supervised visits. But if this is about Olivia Morgan or money, you are wasting your time. We'll see. Rachel pushed away from the car. My lawyer will be in touch about visitation. And Jack, if you're lying about ending things with the Morgan heiress, I'll know. The press follows her everywhere. She walked away, leaving Jack with a familiar hollow feeling in his stomach. He needed to warn Olivia that Rachel was in town, but reaching out felt dangerous, like reopening a wound that had barely begun to scab over. The next 2 weeks passed in a haze of anxiety. Rachel's lawyer sent formal paperwork requesting visitation rights with thinly veiled threats about pursuing full custody if her reasonable requests were denied. Jack's publisher sent a revised contract with significantly reduced terms. The department chair position was given to a new teacher with less experience but fewer complications. Jack tried to shield Sophie from his stress, but she grew increasingly withdrawn, asking about Olivia daily. The telescope remained in its box, untouched. The elaborate dollhouse gathered dust in the corner of her room. Then came the article in the Boston Herald, Morgan Heiress, heartbroken after teacher's rejection. The piece included quotes from sources close to Morgan, claiming Jack had ended the relationship abruptly when he realized the extent of her wealth, suggesting he had been intimidated by her success. Accompanying photos showed Olivia leaving her office building, looking composed but tired, and Jack hurrying into school with Sophie, his expression harried. Jack read the article with growing disbelief. Who would leak such a story? It painted him as shallow and insecure, unable to handle a successful woman. Even worse, it contradicted his claim to Rachel that the relationship had ended due to media attention, potentially reigniting her custody threats. His phone buzzed with a text from Olivia. I had nothing to do with that article. My PR team is investigating the source. Before he could respond, another text arrived. I miss you both terribly. Jack stared at the message, his heart constricting. He missed her too, her laugh, her thoughtful questions about his day, the way she listened to Sophie's endless stories with genuine interest. But reaching out felt impossible now, with Rachel watching his every move and his career hanging in the balance. The following Saturday, Jack took Sophie to the park, hoping fresh air might lift her spirits. She played half-heartedly on the swings, lacking her usual enthusiasm. As Jack pushed her gently, a familiar silver Audi pulled into the parking lot. His heart stuttered as Olivia emerged dressed casually in jeans and a sweater, sunglasses hiding her eyes. Sophie spotted her immediately, jumping from the swing and running across the grass. Olivia, you came back. Olivia knelt to catch Sophie in a hug, holding her tight for a long moment. When she straightened, she removed her sunglasses, revealing eyes rimmed with shadows that suggested sleepless nights. I'm sorry to intrude, she said as Jack approached cautiously, but I needed to see you both, to explain. Explain what? Jack kept his voice neutral, aware of other parents nearby who might recognize Olivia despite her attempt at anonymity. Not here, Olivia glanced around the park. Can we go somewhere private? It's important. They ended up at a small cafe several blocks away, tucked into a corner booth. Sophie colored contentedly with crayons provided by the waitress, while Jack and Olivia spoke in hushed tones. Andrew went to see Rachel. Olivia revealed without preamble. My security team tracked his movements. He's the one who told her about our relationship, who suggested she might have grounds for a custody case. He's been feeding her information, possibly even paying her legal fees. Jack felt as though the floor had dropped away beneath him. Why would he do that? To separate us? Olivia's voice was tight with controlled anger. He believes you're a distraction from my responsibilities to the company, and he's always been protective, sometimes to the point of manipulation. How did you find out? I had him followed after our conversation, Olivia admitted. I knew he'd approached you and it made me suspicious. His assistant confirmed it when I confronted her. She booked the meeting with Rachel arranged everything. Jack tried to process this new information. So Rachel might not actually want custody? This could all be your brother's orchestration? I think Rachel is opportunistic, Olivia replied carefully. Andrew gave her an opportunity and she took it. But I don't believe she genuinely wants to be Sophie's mother again. Her lawyer hasn't filed any further paperwork since your conversation in the school parking lot. Hope flickered briefly in Jackie's chest, then died. It doesn't change anything. The media attention, the effect on my career, Sophie's stability, those concerns are still real. That's the other thing I came to tell you. Olivia leaned forward, her expression intense. I've taken a leave of absence from Morgan Global, effective immediately. Jack stared at her in shock. You what? But the company will survive without me for a few months, Olivia finished. My father is stepping back in temporarily while I figure things out. I told the board I needed time for personal reasons. Olivia, you can't just walk away from your responsibilities because of us, Jack protested. That's exactly what Andrew was worried about. I'm not walking away, she countered. I'm taking time to restructure my life in a way that allows for both my professional responsibilities and personal happiness. I've been living for the company for so long, Jack. Meeting you and Sophie showed me what I've been missing. Sophie looked up from her coloring. Are you coming back to our house, Olivia? The simple question hung in the air between them. Olivia met Jack's gaze, a question in her eyes. It's not that simple, Soph, Jack began, but Olivia interjected gently. I would like to very much, Sophie, but your dad and I need to figure some things out first. Jack felt torn between hope and fear. The media attention won't just disappear because you're on leave. But it will lessen, Olivia argued, and I've had an idea about that. What if we controlled the narrative? What do you mean, an exclusive interview with a respected journalist? On our terms, in a controlled environment. We explain our relationship honestly, address the publicity concerns directly, and make it clear that we're ordinary people despite my family name. Jack considered the suggestion. And you think that would help? It might, Olivia admitted. At least it would allow us to present the truth instead of letting others speculate. Sophie tugged at Jack's sleeve. Daddy, can Olivia come see my new painting? I made it for her. The hope in his daughter's eyes was Jack's undoing. Despite his reservations, he couldn't deny how much Olivia's absence had affected them both. We'll talk more about this, he told Olivia. But yes, you can come see the painting, if you'd like to. The relief on Olivia's face was palpable. I'd like that very much. The drive back to Jack's apartment was tense with unspoken words. Sophie chattered happily from the back seat, oblivious to the adults' complicated emotions. When they arrived, Olivia hesitated in the hallway, as if uncertain of her welcome in a space that had once felt like a second home. Sophie's painting turned out to be a colorful depiction of three figures holding hands, a tall man, a small girl, and a woman with unmistakably auburn hair. It's us, she explained proudly, for when we can all be together again. Olivia knelt to examine the artwork, blinking rapidly against tears. It's beautiful, Sophie. The best painting I've ever seen. While Sophie showed Olivia her other recent creations, Jack made coffee, his mind racing. The revelation about Andrew changed things, but not everything. The core problems remained: the disparity in their worlds, the public scrutiny, the potential impact on Sophie. Yet watching Olivia with his daughter, the natural way they interacted, the genuine affection between them, Jack couldn't deny what his heart already knew. They were building something meaningful, something worth fighting for. When Sophie went to her room to find a book she wanted to show Olivia, Jack finally voiced the question that had been troubling him. Did you mean it about taking leave from the company? Olivia nodded, cradling her coffee mug between her palms. The paperwork was signed yesterday, 3 months initially with the option to extend. Won't that damage your position? Your authority? Why? Perhaps, she acknowledged, but the company existed before me and will continue after me. My father built it to withstand transitions. And I'm not irreplaceable, though. Don't tell the board I said that. The hint of humor was welcome, easing the tension between them. Jack found himself smiling despite everything. What will you do with your time off? I have some ideas, Olivia replied. A few projects I've wanted to explore, mainly involving education funding for underprivileged schools. Jack raised an eyebrow. Nothing to do with a certain English teacher, I hope. The connection is purely coincidental. Olivia's lips curved upward. Though I might need an expert consultant. The moment of lightness faded as Jack returned to more serious concerns. What about Andrew and Rachel? I've confronted Andrew. Olivia's expression hardened. He admits to contacting Rachel but claims he was just investigating potential threats to me. As for Rachel, I think she'll lose interest once she realizes there's no easy money to be had. Unless she genuinely wants to reconnect with Sophie, Jack pointed out. Do you believe that's her motivation? Jack considered the question carefully. No, but I can't legally deny her the chance to try, not without evidence that she's harmful to Sophie. Olivia hesitated, then spoke carefully. My security team has compiled a file on Rachel's activities over the past 3 years. Nothing illegal or invasive, just public records. If it would help, the offer hung between them, tempting in its potential to solve his Rachel problem, yet troubling in its implications. I don't know if I'm comfortable using your resources that way. It feels manipulative. I understand. Olivia didn't press the issue. It's there if you need it, that's all. Sophie returned with an armful of books, climbing onto the couch between them, as if reclaiming her rightful place. For the next hour, they took turns reading stories, the familiar ritual restoring a sense of normalcy that had been missing for weeks. When Sophie finally fell asleep, her head resting against Olivia's shoulder, Jack carefully carried her to bed. Returning to the living room, he found Olivia standing by the window, gazing out at the modest view of neighboring buildings. I should go, she said softly. We both have a lot to think about. Jack moved to stand beside her close enough to catch the familiar scent of her perfume. Thank you for coming today, for telling me about Andrew. I couldn't let you believe I'd leaked that story. Olivia turned to face him, or that I'd given up on us. The sincerity in her eyes made Jack's resolve waver. I never wanted to end things, Olivia. I just couldn't see a way forward that didn't hurt Sophie. And now I'm not sure, he admitted. But I know that walking away from you has been like losing a limb, for both of us. Olivia reached out hesitantly, her fingers brushing his. Then perhaps we can find a middle path. Something between the fishbowl of my world and complete separation. The interview idea has merit, Jack acknowledged. At least it would let us define the terms of public knowledge. Think about it, Olivia suggested. No pressure, no timeline. I'll be here taking my sabbatical, figuring out my own path forward. As she prepared to leave, Jack found himself reluctant to let her go. Have dinner with us tomorrow. Nothing fancy, just family time. The word family hung in the air between them, weighted with meaning. Olivia's smile was soft, hopeful. I'd like that very much. After she left, Jack sat on the couch for a long time thinking about second chances and difficult choices. He still had no clear answers, but for the first time in weeks, he felt hope flickering to life again. The following morning, Jack woke to his phone buzzing with a text from an unknown number. The message contained only a link to a new article. With a sense of dread, he clicked it open. Exclusive: Morgan Global CEO steps down amid romance scandal, the headline blared. The piece detailed Olivia's leave of absence, speculating wildly about her relationship with an unidentified high school teacher, and quoting anonymous board members concerned about her commitment to the company. Before Jack could process this new development, another text arrived, this one from Olivia. Have you seen it? I'm so sorry. This wasn't how I wanted the news to break. As Jack formulated a response, his doorbell rang. Through the peephole, he saw not Olivia, but Andrew Morgan, looking distinctly uncomfortable in the modest hallway of Jack's apartment building. Jack opened the door cautiously. This is unexpected. Andrew straightened his designer tie, clearly ill at ease. May I come in? I believe we need to talk. Jack hesitated, then stepped back to allow Olivia's brother into his home, wondering what new complication this visit would bring to their already tangled situation. Andrew surveyed the apartment with barely concealed disdain, taking in the mismatched furniture and modest proportions. "I'll be brief. My sister is making a catastrophic mistake, and I need your help to prevent it." "If you mean her leave of absence, I had nothing to do with that decision," Jack countered. "It was entirely Olivia's choice." "A choice influenced by her infatuation with you." Andrew's tone was accusatory. "The board is in an uproar. Investors are nervous. 3 generations of Morgan leadership are being undermined because my sister is having a midlife crisis." "Olivia is 32, Jack pointed out dryly. "Hardly midlife." "This isn't a joke," Andrew snapped. "This is about billions of dollars and thousands of jobs. About our family's legacy." Jack crossed his arms, his patience wearing thin. "What exactly do you want from me?" "I want you to end it," Andrew stated bluntly, "completely and definitively. Make it clear to Olivia that there's no future for you together, that your worlds are too different." "Like you tried to orchestrate with Rachel," Jack challenged. "How did that work out for you?" Andrew had the grace to look slightly abashed. "I admit that was misjudged, but my concerns remain valid. You and Olivia come from different worlds. This relationship can't succeed long-term." "That's not your decision to make," Jack replied firmly, "or mine, frankly. It's Olivia's choice how she balances her personal and professional lives." Andrew's expression hardened. "You don't understand what's at stake. Our family has built something that matters, something larger than individual happiness. Olivia has responsibilities she can't just set aside for." The apartment door opened, interrupting Andrew mid-sentence. Sophie entered, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "Daddy, who's talking?" Andrew fell silent, staring at the little girl in unicorn pajamas as if she were an alien life form. Sophie stared back, curious but unintimidated. "You look like Olivia," she observed with a child's directness. "Are you her brother?" She said, "You don't smile enough." Despite everything, Jack had to suppress a laugh at the startled expression on Andrew's face. "Sophie, this is Mr. Morgan. He was just leaving." Andrew recovered his composure with visible effort. "Actually, He knelt awkwardly to Sophie's level. "Yes, I'm Olivia's brother, Andrew." "I'm Sophie," she replied solemnly. "I'm 6, almost 7. Do you like pancakes? Daddy's making blueberry ones." The simple question seemed to throw Andrew completely off balance. He glanced up at Jack, who offered no assistance, then back to Sophie. "I, yes, I suppose I do." "You can stay for breakfast if you want," Sophie offered generously. "We have extra batter." Andrew straightened, visibly uncomfortable. "That's very kind, but I should go." As Jack showed him to the door, Andrew paused, his expression troubled. "She seems like a good kid." "The best," Jack agreed, wondering where this was going. Andrew hesitated, then spoke quickly as if the words were being forced from him. "Olivia was about her age when our mother died. Cancer. Our father buried himself in work afterward, leaving us with nannies and boarding schools. Olivia practically raised herself." The unexpected personal revelation caught Jack off guard. "I didn't know." "She doesn't talk about it." Andrew's voice softened slightly. "But it shaped her, made her determined to prove herself, to earn our father's attention through achievement. Maybe that's why—" He trailed off, then shook his head. "It doesn't matter. Just be careful with her. She gives the impression of strength, but there are vulnerabilities you don't see." With that cryptic warning, Andrew left, leaving Jack to wonder if he'd just witnessed a genuine moment of brotherly concern or another manipulation. Either way, the conversation had given him a new perspective on Olivia, and perhaps on Andrew as well. As Jack made pancakes for Sophie, his phone buzzed with another text from Olivia. "Can we still do dinner tonight? I have some news." Jack stared at the message, thinking about Andrew's visit, about Rachel's threats, about Sophie's painting of their makeshift family, about Olivia's unexpected sabbatical and what it might mean for all of them. "Is that Olivia?" Sophie asked, peering at his phone. "Tell her we miss her, and that I saved her a pancake." Jack smiled at his daughter's simple certainty about what mattered. Perhaps he thought it was time to follow her example, to focus on the essential truth at the core of all this complexity. "Yes," he typed back to Olivia. "Dinner tonight. Sophie's saving you a pancake." Whatever came next, they would face it together. 2 weeks after the park reunion, Jack's hatchback pulled up to the elegant brownstone in Elmwood Heights, a leafy neighborhood just 6 blocks from Sophie's elementary school. He admired the classic red brick facade with its large bay windows and ornamental ironwork modest by Morgan standards but still exuding quiet luxury in this well-established area. Is this really Olivia's new house? Sophie pressed her face against the car window, eyes wide at the 3-story building. It's like the houses in my storybooks. Jack smiled at her enthusiasm. Remember, she's just renting it for now. And yes, we're going to help her move in today. Olivia appeared on the front steps as they parked dressed in faded jeans and a simple t-shirt, an outfit Jack had never seen her wear before. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and a smudge of dust marked her cheek. The sight of her looking so casual, so unburdened by corporate polish, made his heart skip. My moving crew has arrived. She bounded down the steps with uncharacteristic exuberance, sweeping Sophie into a hug before giving Jack a quick kiss. Fair warning, I may have underestimated how much work setting up a house actually is. Rosa always handled these things. Jack laughed, pulling boxes from the trunk. Welcome to how the other 99.9% lives. Don't worry, Sophie is an expert organizer. She rearranges our apartment monthly. I brought my special markers to label everything, Sophie announced, brandishing her prize art supplies. And I already decided where all your books should go. The day unfolded in a whirlwind of unpacking, arranging, and domestic debates about furniture placement. Jack marveled at how naturally they fell into a rhythm together, with Sophie directing operations from her self-appointed position as organization supervisor. By late afternoon, the main living spaces had transformed from a collection of boxes to the beginnings of a home. Olivia collapsed onto the newly positioned sofa, exhaustion and satisfaction mingling in her expression. I've negotiated billion-dollar acquisitions that were less complicated than deciding where to put this coffee table. She groaned, though her eyes sparkled with contentment. But you've never had such excellent consultants. Jack settled beside her, watching Sophie meticulously arrange books on a shelf according to some 6-year-old logic involving colors and sizes rather than authors or titles. Daddy, can I show Olivia my special room now? Sophie bounced on her toes, barely containing her excitement. Jack and Olivia exchanged glances. During their 2-week separation, Olivia had quietly furnished one of the spare bedrooms for Sophie, creating a space that would be exclusively hers in this new home. It was a gesture that spoke volumes about her commitment to them both. Of course, sweetheart, Olivia stood, allowing Sophie to tug her upstairs. I can't wait to see what you think. Jack followed them to the second floor, where Sophie pushed open the door to reveal a room that perfectly balanced a child's fantasy with practical comfort. A canopy bed with twinkling fairy lights, bookshelves filled with carefully selected titles, an art station by the window overlooking the small backyard garden, and most impressively, a ceiling painted to resemble a night sky complete with constellations that would glow in the dark. It's magic, Sophie gasped, spinning in circles as she took it all in. Look, Daddy, the stars are like the ones we see with my telescope. Jack's throat tightened with emotion. The room represented everything Olivia was offering them, not luxury or extravagance, but thoughtfulness, security, and a place to belong. He caught Olivia's anxious glance, recognizing her silent question. Was this too much? He squeezed her hand in reassurance. It's perfect. Their peaceful re-entry into each other's lives faced its first challenge the following Monday. Jack was summoned to the principal's office during his planning period, where he found not just Principal Winters, but 2 members of the school board waiting. The board has concerns, Jack, Winters began without preamble. While the media attention has decreased, your situation remains complicated. Board member Jenkins, a conservative man in his 60s who had opposed Jack's hiring 3 years earlier, cleared his throat. We've received complaints from parents about your relationship with Miss Morgan. They're concerned about disruption, about the values being modeled. Jack felt his jaw tighten. My personal life has never affected my teaching. The department chair position opens next month, Winters said, her expression sympathetic but firm. The board feels it should go to someone with fewer complications. The message was clear. His relationship with Olivia was costing him professionally. The promotion would have meant a substantial raise, one that would have eased his perpetual financial juggling act. That evening after Sophie was in bed, Jack shared the development with Olivia as they sat in her kitchen, the remnants of dinner still on the table. "This is exactly what I was afraid of," he admitted, the frustration he'd suppressed all day finally surfacing. "They're punishing me for who I'm dating." Olivia's expression hardened into something Jack recognized from their early days, the CEO face calculated and strategic. "We need to take control of this narrative before it controls us." The interview with The Atlantic. "It's time." Jack nodded slowly. "You're right, but I'm worried about Sophie. What if this makes things worse?" "If we do nothing, it definitely gets worse," Olivia pointed out. "The interview gives us a chance to define ourselves on our terms, to show we're not some tabloid spectacle, but real people building something meaningful." The following week brought preparation for the interview. Olivia's PR team, now working on a consulting basis during her leave, arranged for Elena Winters, a respected journalist known for thoughtful profiles, to meet them at a neutral location. Jack spent hours with Olivia discussing boundaries, what was shareable, what remained private, how to protect Sophie while still being authentic. Remember, Olivia coached him the night before. "We're not hiding, but we're also not offering every detail of our lives for public consumption. Think of it like teaching you share your passion for literature with your students, but not your private struggles or dreams." The interview day arrived with crisp autumn air and golden sunlight. They met Elena at a boutique hotel downtown in a private sitting room arranged by Olivia's team. Jack had chosen his outfit carefully professional, but not stuffy, a balance between the academic he was and the public figure he was reluctantly becoming. Elena proved to be exactly as promised. Thoughtful, incisive, but not sensationalistic. She explored their backgrounds, their meeting the challenges of bridging their different worlds. When she asked about Sophie, Jack appreciated her sensitivity and respect for their boundaries. "Children need stability," he told her. "Everything we've done has been with Sophie's well-being as our primary concern." The most challenging moment came when Elena asked directly about their future. "Where do you see this relationship going? Are there wedding bells in the future for the Morgan heiress?" Jack glanced at Olivia, momentarily at a loss. They hadn't discussed marriage, though the thought had certainly crossed his mind in quiet moments. Olivia's response was graceful yet genuine. "We're building something meaningful together. That includes Sophie, who is central to both our lives. The shape that ultimately takes will be decided privately, not by public expectation or timeline." When Elena left 3 hours later, Jack felt both drained and relieved. "That was intense. Do you think it will help?" "Elena's reputation is impeccable," Olivia assured him. "If anyone can present us fairly, it's her." The 3 weeks of waiting for the article to be published stretched Jack's nerves to the breaking point. Rachel's lawyer sent increasingly aggressive letters demanding expanded visitation rights, citing the unstable living situation created by Jack's relationship with Olivia. The school board remained distant, and whispers among his colleagues suggested the department chair position had already been promised to a newer teacher with an Ivy League pedigree, but far less classroom experience. When the article finally appeared online one Tuesday morning in late October, Jack read it with his heart in his throat. Olivia looking over his shoulder in her kitchen before work. Beyond headlines, The Reality of Dating a Morgan by Elena Winters. Jack Reynolds doesn't fit the mold of what tabloids might expect for billionaire CEO Olivia Morgan. The high school English teacher and single father speaks passionately about American literature, his 6-year-old daughter's artistic talents, and the novel he's been writing for 5 years. What he doesn't mention until prompted is how his life intersected with one of America's wealthiest businesswomen. "It wasn't about her position or background," Reynolds explains of their first meeting. "It was about seeing someone who needed simple human connection. My daughter noticed her first, actually." For her part, Morgan, who recently took a leave of absence from her position at Morgan Global Investments, speaks with refreshing candor about the challenges of living life under constant scrutiny. "Privacy becomes a luxury you can't buy," she admits. "What Jack and his daughter gave me was the gift of being seen as a person, not a portfolio." The article continued with thoughtful exploration of their different backgrounds, the media circus that had erupted around them, and their commitment to creating stability for Sophie. It concluded with a direct appeal. As our conversation ends, what lingers is not the sensation of unlikely worlds colliding, but rather the impression of three people, a teacher, a sawo, and a remarkably perceptive 6-year-old, creating something genuine in a world that often prioritizes spectacle over substance. Perhaps the greatest kindness readers could offer this family is simply the space to define themselves on their own terms. It's perfect, Jack breathed, relief washing over him. She captured exactly what we wanted to convey. The impact was immediate and largely positive. Other publications picked up the narrative of thoughtful professionals navigating an unusual situation with dignity. The school board, relieved by the respectful portrayal of Roosevelt High, backed off their implied threats. Jack's colleagues shifted from whispered gossip to open congratulations, and even Jenkins grudgingly admitted during a faculty meeting that perhaps some situations are more complex than they appear. The most surprising reaction came from Andrew, who called Olivia with a grudging compliment. The article was less disastrous than expected. Father wants to meet them properly. This led to the formal invitation that now had Jack sorting through his limited wardrobe on a crisp Sunday morning in early November, a month after the article's publication. "What exactly does one wear to dinner with a billionaire?" Jack muttered, examining his one good suit for signs of wear. Olivia, lounging on his bed, watching the process with amusement, smiled sympathetically. "You could wear jeans and my father wouldn't care. He judges people by their minds, not their clothes." "Easy for you to say," Jack replied, checking for missed spots from the last dry cleaning. "You grew up with this." "And hated most of it," Olivia reminded him. "The formality, the constant awareness of family expectations. That's why Sunday dinners were actually my favorite, the one time my father relaxed the Morgan protocols." Sophie was beside herself with excitement about visiting a real castle, as she called it. Jack had tried to prepare her for the grandeur of the Morgan estate without making her feel intimidated. The mansion, when they arrived that afternoon, exceeded even Jack's expectations. Georgian style, with imposing columns and perfectly manicured grounds stretching in all directions, it looked like something from a period film rather than a family home. "It's bigger than my school," Sophie gasped, pressing her face against the car window. Olivia met them at the entrance, elegant in a simple dress that somehow made Jack more aware of his own well-worn suit. She knelt to hug Sophie first, a priority she always maintained, before kissing Jack lightly. "Ready to meet my father?" William Morgan awaited them in a book-lined study that could have housed Jack's entire apartment. In his 70s, but commanding in presence, he rose from behind an imposing desk, extending a hand while examining Jack with keen amber eyes identical to his daughter's. "So you're the teacher who's captured my daughter's attention." William's handshake was firm, his assessment direct. Quite an accomplishment, considering the CEOs and senators who've tried and failed. Jack maintained eye contact despite his nerves. "I think it was actually my daughter who captured her attention first. Sophie has that effect on people." William's gaze shifted to Sophie, who was staring open-mouthed at the floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. His stern expression softened unexpectedly. "You like books, young lady." Sophie nodded solemnly. "Books are magic. That's what my daddy says when he reads to me, even when he's super tired." Something flickered across William's face, recognition perhaps, or memory. "My late wife used to say the same thing to Olivia. She read to her every night, no matter how busy her schedule." The personal revelation shifted the atmosphere instantly. William stepped back, gesturing toward the shelves. "There's a collection of first edition children's books on the bottom two shelves. My wife started it when Olivia was born. Perhaps you'd like to see them." As Sophie explored the treasures under William's surprisingly patient guidance, Olivia whispered to Jack, "I haven't seen him like this in years. He's actually most relaxed." Dinner was served in a formal dining room that intimidated Jack with was crystal and silver. Andrew was absent, traveling in London, according to Olivia, which relieved some tension. Throughout the meal, William directed pointed questions at Jack about his teaching philosophy, his writing, and his approach to parenting. Sophie, initially overwhelmed, gradually warmed to the formal setting and began sharing stories about school and her artwork. To Jack's amazement, William listened with genuine interest, even requesting to see samples of her work. "For my assessment as a collector," he explained with unexpected humor. After Sophie had been escorted to the kitchen for dessert by the housekeeper, William addressed the elephant in the room. "Andrew tells me you've taken leave from the company, Olivia, because of this relationship." Olivia set down her wine glass deliberately. I've taken leave to reassess my priorities, Father. My relationship with Jack and Sophie is part of that, but not the entire reason. The board is concerned. Shareholders are asking questions. The quarterly reports should answer those questions. Olivia replied evenly. We're up 22% over last year. The London acquisition is proceeding ahead of schedule. Jack watched the exchange with fascination. Seeing Olivia shift seamlessly into her CEO persona, a glimpse of her other life, the one he rarely witnessed directly. The company needs consistent leadership, William insisted. The Morgan name carries responsibilities. I've fulfilled those responsibilities for 7 years, Olivia countered. I've earned this time to create a life beyond the boardroom. William's gaze shifted to Jack. And you, Mr. Reynolds, what are your intentions regarding my daughter's personal life? The directness caught Jack off guard, but he opted for honesty. I love your daughter, Mr. Morgan, not for her name or her position, but for who she is, her intelligence, her kindness, her way of listening, like whatever you're saying is the only thing that matters in the world. I love how she reads to Sophie with different voices for each character. I love that she's trying to figure out who she is beyond the roles she's been assigned. William studied him for a long moment. My wife would have liked you, he said finally. Catherine always worried that Olivia would inherit my workaholic tendencies without her counterbalance. This mention of Olivia's mother transformed the evening. William showed Jack his rare book collection, engaging him in a spirited discussion of Fitzgerald and Hemingway that continued until Sophie returned, eyes heavy with sleepiness. On the drive home with Sophie already asleep in the back seat, Jack glanced at Olivia in the passenger seat. That went better than I expected. He likes you. Olivia smiled, the tension of the evening finally leaving her shoulders. I could tell. How he grilled me like a suspect. That's how he shows interest. If he didn't care, he wouldn't have bothered asking questions. And he never would have shown you his first editions. Jack absorbed this information. Your father is not what I expected. He's complicated, Olivia agreed. After my mother died, he retreated into work, but these glimpses of his other side still appear occasionally. As they drove in comfortable silence, Jack voiced the thought that had been forming since dinner. I meant what I said to your father. I do love you, Olivia. Olivia reached across the console to take his hand. I love you too, both of you, more than I thought possible. Their moment of connection was interrupted the following morning by a call from Jack's lawyer. Rachel had escalated her demands, now seeking full custody on the grounds that Jack's relationship with Olivia created an unstable environment with unnecessary media attention and exposure to extreme wealth, creating unrealistic expectations. The custody hearing was scheduled for December 15th, just 3 weeks away. Jack's lawyer, a competent but overworked public defender, warned that Rachel had retained Carmichael and Stein, a firm known for aggressive tactics in high-profile custody cases. When Jack shared the news with Olivia that evening, her reaction surprised him. Rather than the strategic problem-solving he'd come to expect, she broke down in tears. This is my fault. She gripped the counter in her kitchen knuckles white. If it weren't for me, Rachel wouldn't have any grounds to threaten you. Jack had never seen Olivia so vulnerable, so stripped of her usual confidence. This isn't on you, he insisted, wrapping his arms around her. Rachel is opportunistic, she always has been. She's using you as an excuse, but she doesn't actually care about Sophie's welfare. As December approached, they prepared for the hearing with growing anxiety. Jack gathered character references from colleagues and documentation of his parenting history. Olivia hired a private investigator, despite Jack's initial reluctance to document Rachel's activities over the past 3 years, sporadic employment, frequent relocations, and complete lack of contact with Sophie. Sophie, perceptive as always, noticed the tension despite their attempts to shield her. Are you worried about Mommy taking me away? She asked one evening as Jack tucked her in. Emma's parents got divorced, and now she has to live with her dad on weekends and her mom on school days. Jack's heart constricted at her matter-of-fact tone. I'm doing everything I can to make sure that doesn't happen, Soph. You belong with me. And with Olivia too, Sophie added sleepily. We're a family now. The simple declaration lingered in Jack's mind as the hearing date approached. They had indeed become a family gradually, and then suddenly building connections that felt more substantial than any legal definition. The morning of December 15th arrived with a light snowfall that dusted the city in white. Jack dressed Sophie in her nicest clothes, trying to project a calm he didn't feel. They would meet Olivia at the courthouse, a calculated decision to avoid arriving together and potentially supporting Rachel's claims. The courthouse loomed imposing and cold, its marble halls echoing with footsteps. Rachel was already there with her attorney looking polished, in a conservative suit that bore little resemblance to the bohemian graduate student Jack had married. Olivia arrived minutes later, deliberately understated in a simple blue dress, her hair pulled back modestly. She squeezed Jack's hand briefly before kneeling to hug Sophie. "Remember what we practiced?" she whispered. "Just tell the truth about what makes you happy." As they entered the courtroom, Jack noticed William Morgan in the back row, his presence unexpected but somehow reassuring. Olivia followed his gaze, her own expression registering surprise at her father's appearance. The proceedings began formally. Rachel's attorney presented her case, first painting Rachel as a mother who had made mistakes but was now stable and eager to reconnect. The lawyer strategically focused on the disruptions in Sophie's life since Jack met Olivia, emphasizing media attention and exposure to extreme wealth as potentially harmful. When Rachel took the stand, she presented a carefully crafted image of maternal regret. "I made a terrible mistake leaving Sophie." Her voice trembled convincingly. "I was young and overwhelmed, but I've grown, created stability. I just want a chance to be her mother again." During cross-examination, Jack's lawyer attempted to highlight Rachel's extended absence, but Rachel had clearly been well coached. "I was afraid to reach out before I could offer Sophie consistency," she explained smoothly. "It wouldn't have been fair to disrupt her life without being able to provide stability." When Jack testified, he focused on concrete examples of his parenting, helping with homework, creating routines fostering Sophie's interests. He spoke honestly about Olivia, emphasizing how she had respected his parenting decisions and formed a genuine bond with Sophie. Rachel's attorney was aggressive during cross-examination. "Isn't it true that your relationship with Olivia Morgan has brought unwanted attention to your daughter, that photographers have attempted to speak with her at school?" Jack acknowledged the incidents but emphasized the steps they had taken to shield Sophie, including the controlled interview that had largely resolved the media interest. The judge seemed unconvinced. "Mr. Reynolds, while I appreciate your efforts, your association with a high-profile figure has created complications in your daughter's life. These are legitimate concerns for the court." Jack felt the case slipping away. As his testimony concluded, he returned to his seat beside Olivia, despair growing within him. "The court calls Olivia Morgan," the judge announced unexpectedly. They hadn't planned for Olivia to testify. Their strategy had been to minimize her role to avoid playing into Rachel's narrative. Olivia squeezed his hand reassuringly before approaching the stand. On the witness stand, Olivia was the picture of composed sincerity. When asked about her relationship with Sophie, her answer was measured yet heartfelt. "Sophie is an extraordinary child, creative, empathetic, and remarkably perceptive. From our first meeting when she complimented my hair in a restaurant, we've developed a genuine connection based on mutual respect." "And are you aware of the concerns raised regarding your relationship with Mr. Reynolds bringing unwanted attention to Sophie?" "I am," Olivia acknowledged. "That's why I've taken concrete steps to address those concerns. I've established a residence separate from my penthouse to provide a more normal environment. I've taken leave from my position at Morgan Global specifically to ensure my professional responsibilities don't interfere with the stability Sophie deserves." The judge raised an eyebrow. "You've taken leave from your position as CEO because of this relationship?" "Because of my priorities," Olivia clarified. "Sophie and Jack have shown me what it truly matters: family connection, being present for the people you love. I grew up with a father who often chose work over family. I've seen firsthand the cost of that choice, and I refuse to repeat it." Rachel's attorney attempted to undermine Olivia's testimony, suggesting her wealth created unrealistic expectations for a child. Olivia countered each point with thoughtful responses. "Money doesn't define love or family," she stated firmly. "Jack has taught me that. He's rejected my financial assistance repeatedly, insisting on maintaining his independence. What matters to Sophie isn't material possessions, but consistency, honesty, and genuine attention." The final witness was Sophie herself, interviewed privately in the judge's chambers. When she emerged 30 minutes later, she ran straight to Jack and Olivia. "I told the judge that you're my daddy forever," she whispered to Jack, "and that Olivia reads better princess voices than anyone." During a brief recess before the judge's ruling, William Morgan approached them in the consultation room. "I took the liberty of speaking with the judge during lunch," he announced without preamble, "as an interested party concerned about my granddaughter's welfare." Jack stared at him in confusion. "Sophie isn't your granddaughter." William's expression remained impassive. "Not yet, perhaps, but I've made my intentions clear regarding your family's future integration with the Morgan name." He straightened his already perfect tie. "I also shared some information about Miss Lawrence that my investigators uncovered. Nothing improper, merely public records the court might find relevant." Before Jack could process this intervention, they were called back to the courtroom. The judge reviewed his notes thoughtfully before delivering his decision. "Having considered all testimony and evidence, I find that Sophie Reynolds' best interests are served by remaining in the primary custody of her father, Jack Reynolds." Relief flooded through Jack as the judge continued granting Rachel limited, supervised visitation with potential for gradual increase if she demonstrated consistency. Outside the courthouse, Sophie skipped between Jack and Olivia, the morning's tension already forgotten. Rachel passed them on her way out, pausing briefly. "This isn't over," she began, but William Morgan stepped forward, his imposing presence effectively silencing her. "I believe it is, Miss Lawrence." His tone was pleasant but carried unmistakable authority. "Unless you'd prefer my legal team to explore certain inconsistencies in your recent financial activities." Rachel paled visibly before hurrying away. Jack turned to William, uncertain whether to feel grateful or disturbed by his intervention. "That was effective," he managed. William straightened his cuffs. "The Morgan family protects its own, Mr. Reynolds, something you might as well begin to understand." As William departed, Jack absorbed the implications of his statement. The Morgan family protects its own, and somehow, improbably, he and Sophie had been granted inclusion in that designation. That evening, they celebrated their victory with ice cream in Olivia's garden. Sophie, exhausted from the emotional day, fell asleep on the porch swing, her head pillowed on Olivia's lap. "Your father called me this afternoon." Jack broke the comfortable silence. "He suggested Sunday dinner should become a regular tradition." Olivia smiled, the evening light catching the amber flecks in her eyes. "He's trying in his way. It's more than he's done in years." Jack watched his daughter sleeping peacefully, secure in Olivia's care. The challenges they'd faced, media scrutiny, family opposition, custody threats, had only strengthened his certainty about what mattered most. "Move in with us," he said suddenly. "Or we'll move in with you, whichever makes more sense. But let's stop pretending we're separate households." Olivia's eyes widened slightly. "Are you sure, after everything that's happened?" "I've never been more sure of anything. We're already a family in every way that matters." "Yeah," Olivia whispered, tears glistening in her eyes. "Absolutely yes." The next morning, they shared the news with Sophie over breakfast. Her reaction was immediate and joyful. "Does this mean I get to sleep in my special room at Olivia's house all the time?" She bounced in her chair. "And Olivia will read me stories every night." "That's exactly what it means." Jack confirmed, his heart full at her enthusiasm. "But it's a big change. Are you okay with that?" Sophie looked at him with the wisdom sometimes found in children. "We've been a family for ages, Daddy. We're just making it official." The transition happened gradually over the next month. They decided to make Olivia's brownstone their home. It was closer to Sophie's school, had more space than Jack's apartment, and represented the middle ground they'd been seeking between their worlds. Jack insisted on contributing financially, taking on the utilities and groceries, while Olivia handled the mortgage. It was an arrangement that respected his independence while acknowledging their different financial situations. By the following spring, their lives had found a new rhythm. Rachel had maintained her supervised visits with Sophie for several months before gradually losing interest as she realized there was no financial angle to exploit. William Morgan had become a regular fixture in their lives, hosting Sunday dinners and developing a genuine relationship with Sophie, who delighted in his stories about Olivia's childhood. Andrew remained more distant, though civil, especially after Olivia returned to Morgan Global on her own terms, working 4 days a week with no evening meetings, maintaining boundaries that had previously seemed impossible. Jack's novel series had found success beyond his expectations, allowing him to reduce his teaching load to part-time. He'd been promoted to department chair after all the school board's concerns evaporating in the face of his literary achievements and the stabilization of his personal life in the public eye. 1 year after the custody hearing, they gathered in the backyard of the brownstone to celebrate Sophie's 7th birthday. Friends from school, Jack's colleagues, and even William Morgan mingled comfortably as Sophie proudly showed off her art studio, a converted garden shed that had been Olivia's birthday gift. "She's flourishing," William observed, watching his granddaughter with obvious pride. "Catherine would have adored her." Jack nodded in agreement. "We're thinking of adding to the family," he admitted. "Olivia and I have been discussing it. Sophie keeps asking for a sibling." William smiled, a genuine expression that had become more common over the past year. "The Morgan line continues then, though perhaps with less emphasis on corporate takeovers and more on literature and art." "Is that disappointment I hear?" Jack asked, surprised by William's openness. "Evolution," William corrected. "The best family legacies adapt. Olivia is happier than I've seen her since Catherine died. That's worth more than any business achievement." Later that evening, after the party had ended and Sophie had fallen asleep surrounded by new books and art supplies, Jack found Olivia in their bedroom examining a small velvet box. "What's that?" he asked, though he suspected he knew. "I was going to wait until your birthday next month," Olivia admitted. "But after today, seeing everyone together, our family complete." She opened the box to reveal a simple platinum band. "I thought perhaps you might want to make things truly official." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Isn't this traditionally my role?" Olivia laughed softly. "When have we ever been traditional? Besides, I've never been good at waiting once I've made a decision." Jack took the ring, examining it in the soft lamplight. "No diamond the size of a small country." "I considered it," Olivia admitted with a grin. "But then I remembered who I was asking. This seemed more fitting, simple, strong, unadorned, but valuable." Jack slid the ring onto his finger, finding it fit perfectly. "How long have you been planning this?" "Since the custody hearing," Olivia confessed. "When I realized that no matter what happened in that courtroom, I couldn't imagine my life without you both." Jack pulled her close, overwhelmed by the journey that had brought them to this moment, from a chance encounter in a restaurant to building a family neither of them had expected to find. "You know Sophie will insist on being the flower girl," he murmured against her hair. "And the ring bearer," Olivia added, "and probably the wedding planner too." As they held each other in the quiet house, Jack reflected on the improbable path they'd traveled. A high school teacher and a billionaire CEO bridging worlds that should have remained separate, creating something neither could have built alone. Some journeys were worth every obstacle along the path.